Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show will revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Moosie Drier and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Moosie Drier, and today we're excited to have on a legendary puppeteer, actor, and director. He's been in some of the greatest kid shows, such as Sesame Street, Eureka's Castle, and one of my kids' favorites,
Welcome to the Blue House,
Bear in the Big Blue House. He's had his own cabaret show. He's appeared on Broadway. He's also authored several books, including his memoir, Hey, This Was Really Fun, a memoir from Sesame Street to the Big Blue House and beyond. And most importantly, he's a fellow New Yorker. Please help us welcome Noel MacNeal. Noel, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. And
welcome.
When people are hearing this, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So you grew up in Harlem. Did you or anyone else in your family have any love of performing when you were a kid?
Well, my mom, actually, before she got married and had me, she actually aspired to be an actress. And she took lessons at this little studio on 125th Street, taught by an actor named Sidney Poitier.
Oh, wow.
And one of her classmates was this guy who she felt sorry for because, he didn't have the best clothes and his shoes had holes in them. And so she would occasionally invite him back as a friend to her house where her mom would home cook meals and pretty much give him nourishment. That castmate happened to be a guy named Billy D. Williams.
Oh, wow.
And she told me, if I'd known then
Yes.
what I know now, your last name would not be MacNeal.
Oh, whoa, whoa.
Another bad one, too. There was
Yeah.
Poitier and Billy D. Williams.
As
Yeah,
such.
one time actually, many years ago, my mom was coming home from work and she was waiting for the bus, and Sidney Poitier actually was walking down the street, and she just turned and smiled at him, and he kept looking at her why is this woman smiling at me? Why is it? And then he stopped and he said, Jiminy Cricket, Edna, and they hugged. Yes.
When you were growing up, were you influenced by Sesame Street? Did you watch Sesame Street? I'm going to guess yes, but
Oh yeah, because back when I was a kid, there were more puppet shows on. There was Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop. There was Captain Kangaroo. There was Mr. Rogers. There was Paul Winchell, the ventriloquist, who had his own show, Winchell Mahoney Time, and he would then go on to be the voice actor for many characters, including Disney's Tigger. Also, by the way, he invented the artificial heart, so puppetry can save lives.
wow.
And then when I was, I don't know, I guess it was about
That's
7 years old. That's when our local PBS station, Channel 13, had this special on a Sunday night, and it was hosted by two puppets. One had the head of a football, and one had the head of a banana. And the names were Ernie and Bert, talking about this brand new show coming on tomorrow morning called Sesame Street.
Hey, Bert, come in here quick.
Yeah, Aaron?
Hey, Bert, look out there. There's millions of people out there watching us on TV.
Right. Hi there. Kind of a preview of Sesame Street before it goes on the air. It'll be on the educational stations all around the country. Sesame Street is made for little kids, preschoolers.
Yeah. And it's going to be on the air every day for a whole hour, and in some places it's going to be on twice a day.
Right.
Twice a day, Bert.
Twice. I got that.
Hey, Bert, you know what things kids like to watch the most on TV?
I sure do.
What?
Dancing.
No, Bert.
Dogs and cats?
No.
Explosions?
No.
Roller derby?
No.
What?
I'll tell you, Bert.
And so I knew how, the count and the alphabet, but I watched it for the Muppets. And then all through the 70s, followed their career on Ed Sullivan, Flip Wilson, Hey Cinderella, Bremertown Musicians, the Santa Claus Switch, right up to the Muppet Show. So yeah, I watched all puppet stuff. But then there was also great syndicated puppet shows when I was growing up. There was, here in New York, there was a show called The Magic Garden. On Saturday mornings, there was...
They've been on this show, by the way. They've been on.
Oh, Carol and Paul. Loved
Carol
Carol
and Paul, yeah.
Right.
So-
Had a huge crush. Uh, and then there was like, syndicated stuff. Like there was a show called Dusty's Treehouse. There was Giggle Snort Hotel. That's a weird one. Google that, folks. But yeah, so there was like more puppet shows on when I was growing up. So
What was that called? Giggle Snort Hotel?
Giggle Snort Hotel. It was a hotel, and it had these sort of like puppets made from rubber. And there was this character called Dirty Dragon, who basically had a cigar and had like nostrils where smoke was coming out of his nostrils, and he would like smoke up the entire place. This was the 70s. You can get away with stuff like that. So yes, Giggle Snort Hotel.
Yeah, do you know the title
Have
makes
fun.
me think it's something else. Yeah.
Yeah, no, no. It could be because
be.
this is also the era of HR Puffin stuff. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
Living Island and
Yeah.
mushrooms talked. Mhm.
So you studied at the Pratt Institute under Kermit Love, which I love, which is so ironic that you did. So first of all, what was he like as a person and as a teacher?
Um, a friend of mine described him as not so much a mentor as a tormentor. Uh, so
Use that.
yeah, so he was it's so funny. He was born and raised in New Jersey, but he had this sort of affected English accent that he would try and like palm off. And he would have like he would just name drop at like at anything like the first job that professional job was a job that he hired me for, and it was to do these commercials in Paris for Maggi bouillon cubes. And so we were there for like a week, me and Jim Krupa. And it was funny how we would walk down the street because Kermit had lived in Paris because of the fact that he had background in ballet costume design. And before we even like turned the corner, he would say, coming up is this building, blah, blah, blah. And sure enough, turn around and like down to the last detail was this building that's still there that he remembered. And he just like loved to name drop. Like I remember one time on Sesame Street, covered for him while he went out to lunch. He got invited to the Russian tea room for this business lunch. And so he came back, and me and Debbie Spinney, Carol Spinney's wife, saw him, and he came over to us. And I said, "How was lunch?" And he said, "Oh, wonderful. I even saw Barbara." And I said, "Streisand?" He said, "Yes." And I said, "Let me guess. You once told her, 'Don't ever get your nose fixed.'" And he said, "That's right." And it was the kind of thing like, you know what? He probably did. That's the thing. He
Yeah.
probably did. He knew like all the ballet greats. He knew George Balanchine, Jerome Robbins,
Oh, wow.
Paula Tharp. One time he and I were walking down the street, Edward Villella, the ballet dancer, walked towards us and gave Kermit a hug and introduced me. So he did know these people.
Know the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the record, for people listening, Kermit Love, who was an integral part of Sesame Street, he was not. Kermit the Frog was not named after Kermit Love.
No, not at all. That's the disclaimer I always go with right off the bat.
Right.
It's just one of those freaky puppet coincidences.
What was the transition like to go from behind the scenes and then into the puppeteering?
Well, when I got to Pratt, it was a choice of two colleges because this was back in the 70s, so there was no internet. So I always say I did research the old-fashioned way. I went to the library, which is like Barnes and Noble, but it's free. And I found two colleges. One was the University of Connecticut in Storrs, Connecticut, which to this day you could get your 4-year degree master's in puppetry. And the other was, at that time, Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. And within Pratt, there was a theater department. And the class of puppetry was taught by Kermit Love, who built the puppets, Big Bird and Snuffy, for Sesame Street. When I went for the interview and got accepted, they told me that the theater department was shutting down, so that I was the last theater major being accepted. So I realized by senior year, I would literally be in a class by myself. And before going back that September, Kermit's assistant on Sesame Street quit. And so he offered me the job. And after a nanosecond, I said yes. And so I started this great education in television production with the penultimate kids show, which back then was like a full hour. And so I would like, sit in on production meetings and take notes and like prep the puppets and get all the like costumes or props ready for them so that when I became a puppeteer, I knew exactly like, where monitors should be placed because that's how we do TV puppetries with a monitor. Like people call it the Jim Henson style, but actually Mr. Rogers came up with this because I got to go visit um, one time at Pittsburgh, and I saw X the Owl's like tree, and like the original pillow that was there that Mr. Rogers would kneel on, and there was this monitor so that he could see what he was doing. So basically, he was working like monitors, like before or around the same time Jim was. Anyway, um, now that I'm a director for the show, it comes in handy because I know exactly like how long it would take to prep the puppet and what technique and what prop would be needed. And puppeteering wise, it's like, yes, I know you can like sit this way and have the monitor here. And we would need a cut here, or if we can't, we can do this. So all that like actually has helped me become a director for the show and for other projects as well.
So with shooting puppets, there's blocking. I guess you're limited, of course, to the ones that are controlled, behind a couch or something. But
Well, it's like for me, that's what I try not to do is just go by Jim Henson's whole conceit is that your TV screen is your proscenium. So the puppets really don't have to hide behind a box or
oh
a
yeah,
couch.
yeah, yeah, you could just be out of frame.
Just
Yeah,
be right there.
yeah,
And also trying to get as much movement as possible. Also, try not to have what we call like the dead airspace and just have like talking heads on the bottom and you have all this space up above. When I worked on Sesame Street, and that's the one thing we strived for was to not have this like airspace above the characters so that we would even like in a crowd scene, like even stack them so
yeah.
that there would be puppets behind. So
Interesting.
yeah, and I tell when I've trained puppeteers for Sesame Street for the co-productions, I've told the puppeteers, it's like, we don't care how uncomfortable you are down there. Make this pretty. We don't care what's happening down there.
Yeah,
Make
yeah,
this pretty. That's all we care about.
yeah,
Yeah. And I
yeah.
say that because I've been there and I know it can be done. So don't
Right.
whine. Right. I also tell them that, a director will say, can you do this? And I say, you have the right to say no, but you have to back it up with something better. And if you don't have something better, then you figure out how to do it.
Well, I want to ask you something about early on in your career there. You had one of the most famous episodes when Mr. Hooper, played by Will Lee, died. So,
Yeah.
what can you tell us about that whole time? I mean, how much discussion was put into whether or not to incorporate it into the show, and your memories of filming that show, and you relayed it to the audience, I guess.
Yeah, I actually got to meet and work with Will. He loved doing the Thanksgiving Day parade. Uh, at that time, the most popular characters on the show were the Muppets and Mr. Hooper. And when he was on the float, I remember that year, the last time he did it, happened to be on the float, and people were just yelling like Mr. Hooper and like waving. Shortly after that, that's when he became ill and couldn't come back to the show. So they rewrote scripts so that Northern Calloway, who played David and worked at the store, took over like those scripts. And then Will died. And so that's when the period before coming back was discussed about, okay, what do we do? And there was idea of like, oh, they could just recast him, but they thought that'd be like a cheat and not respectful to Will or to the audience saying, oh yeah, that's Mr. Hooper. It's like, no, we've all lived through two Darrens and Bewitched. It doesn't work. Don't do that. The other consideration was like, well, we could say Mr. Hooper moved and he retired and like gave it to David. And they thought, well, no, that's kind of like an easy out. And then it was finally decided, what if we actually explained death and that he died? And after going through rounds of meetings, the best explanation they came up with was that when somebody dies, they go away and they don't come back. So that a child could actually understand that. They go away and they don't come back. And it was the scene with Big Bird.
Right.
With that show, there was like another scene before that. There was one where Gordon's on the street reading a newspaper, and Big Bird passes him walking backwards with his head between his legs. And Gordon says, "What are you doing, Big Bird?" He says, "I'm walking backwards down the street with my head between my legs." And Gordon says, "Why?" And Big Bird says, "Just because." Just because? Yeah, just because. Want to join me? And so then Gordon walks backwards with Big Bird down the street. Then there's inserts that go by and all that. Then they come back, and now it's the scene, which was shot twice, by the way. And it was like there was no sound in the studio, like everyone was quiet. And Big Bird comes in, and he has the drawings that Carol actually drew of the cast. And the last one is of Mr. Hooper, which he says,
Oh, I can't wait till he sees it. Where is he? I want to give it to him. I know. He's in the store.
A Big Bird? He's not in there.
Oh. Then where is he?
Big Bird, don't you remember we told you Mr. Hooper died? He's dead.
Oh, yeah. I remember. Well, I'll give it to him when he comes back.
Big Bird, Mr. Hooper's not coming back.
Why not?
Big Bird, when people die, they don't come back.
Ever?
No, never.
Why not?
They can't come back.
Well, he's gonna come back. Why, who's gonna take care of the store? And who's gonna make my birds eat milkshakes and tell me stories? It makes me sad.
We all feel sad, Big Bird.
He's never coming back?
Never?
No.
Well, I don't understand. You know, everything was just fine. Why does it have to be this way?
Big Bird,
and that's when Gordon does the call back to,
it has to be this way because.
Just because?
Just because.
yeah, and that's how it ends. And the drawing that Carol drew is still on set by Big Bird's nest.
How was the emotion that day when you were filming all that?
Oh, it was just like, I mean, you know, as soon as they would say cut, you know, people, you could hear people blowing their noses and just like, so it was like a read through, kind of walking it through, and then they shot it once, and then they shot it one more time,
Mhm.
and that was it. It was like,
The soundstage was quiet.
yeah,
And grown-ups have trouble processing death.
yeah,
People don't know how to tell their kids when they ask questions.
yeah,
What a responsible, hard thing to do, probably, but
yeah. And at that time, no other kid show ever did
Right.
that. And it was like huge. And they got, you know, critically acclaimed.
Uh-huh.
And parents wrote in pretty much saying thank you for it, because also, you know, parents also enjoyed Mr. Hooper. I mean, Sesame Street was the kind of show where you could sit with your kids and
Yeah.
watch it. And so, you know, parents were actually glad that it was handled.
It was discussed.
I got to once again be on the Sesame Street float this year as a Big
cool.
Bird. My joke is I get to be a big bird before I eat a big bird.
Uh,
And then as we're going by, you know, people were waving and people are calling the characters. And then one person, just, I don't know who they were, but like, if you're out there, like, thank you so much. They just yelled they just yelled, "Thank you for all the memories." And it was just like, and at that moment after the parade, we all were like, "Did you hear that guy?" It was like, yes. And just like, it just meant
Mhm.
so much that, you know, it's
Yeah.
still, you know, this grown person is still, you know, remembering all the good times and the love they got from visiting this little street.
As long as we're talking about famous episodes, I want to bring up, like, I guess, an infamous episode. So you had started doing Snuffleupagus and other members of the family, and they filmed the episode I read on divorce that never aired. So what was in the episode? How was it received, and why did it never air?
Well, one thing with Sesame Street, they very pride themselves on research and testing. And so we we shot this segment where it was about Snuffy's parents getting a divorce, and they tested it for kids, both in New York and in New Jersey. And this was and this was like, after they had like, went to the press and said, coming up in this season, we're going to, as we handle death, we're going to handle like another difficult subject here, like divorce. And it's like, and it hadn't even been like tested yet. And they tested it in New York and New Jersey. And both test groups, the results were the exact opposite of what they had hoped for. That like when parents argue, they're going to get a divorce. When they get a divorce, it's the kid's fault. It's like something that the kid did. It was like everything they had hoped for. And so then they went and they just spun it like, yes, we tested it. It didn't work and we're not going to air it because, and they just came clean and just did it. A couple of years later, they actually did a segment, a little song about a little bird in this tree. And one nest is the mommy bird's nest and the other nest is the daddy bird's nest. And she flies in between both. And that was sort of their way of explaining divorce. But then, more recently, a few years ago, Abby Kadabi, as her parents got divorced, and her mom remarried, and so that's why Abby has a stepbrother, played by Frankie Cordero, and Abby is played by Leslie Carrera Rudolph, and so that was another way of explaining like divorce and what can happen. So Sesame Street does try, which is great, and why we still need Sesame Street. In so
Yes.
many ways.
I can't imagine how many children or how many families, households, it's not just the kids, but because of the circumstances that this type of programming has helped.
Yeah.
People aren't either willing or capable of explaining to their kids about divorce, about death.
Right.
And so far, we've talked about all the dark things. Happy things happened, right?
Yeah.
On Sesame Street. Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
we still do the
yeah.
alphabet,
Yeah.
The triangle has 3 sides, that'll never change,
I'm gonna just sidestep real quick. I want to talk about another show that you did called The Great Space Coaster.
Yeah, yes.
What was your experience on that show, and what was it?
That's a good question. I was actually thinking about that today, and if you go back and overanalyze things you loved as a kid, none of it makes sense.
No,
And as this show, The Great Space Coaster, it's like none of it makes sense. Like this clown in this sort of hijacked car from Star Wars lands and picks up these teenagers and takes them to this asteroid, who knows where occasionally they get together for a band, and there's a gorilla, and there's a GNU who does news, and there's this evil ringmaster. It's like, what is going on? And then they would sprinkle in all these acquired cartoons. It had no curriculum, which is the saving grace of this. There was nothing. It was just a fun little show. I came in on the next to last season because John Lovelady, the puppeteer on the show, who did a character named Knock Knock, this little pink bird who told Knock Knock jokes. He left to star in the primetime NBC series Mr. Smith, about a talking orangutan who's elected to Congress, which at the time seemed ludicrous. Now, he would be a blessing. But back then, he left to do this, and so I took over Knock Knock for a season. So it was the summer of 1983. And at the same time, Sesame Street was shooting its special, Don't Eat the Pictures, which takes place at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where the Sesame Street cast gets locked into the museum overnight. And Big Bird and Snuffy have to help this Egyptian prince make it into the afterlife. And with a test in front of Osiris, the god of death. And again, if you really think about this too much, it's really weird. But yeah, I worked on Space Coaster, and there was one time when and we shot a lot of the museum stuff at night because it had to be dark. It had to be nighttime. For the scene where it's dawn and everybody wakes up, we got there super early so that we could get like the sunrise. But I also had to, and that was the only shot we were doing that day. And I had to be at Space Coaster. So I'm like checking my watch, and I'm wrangling and I'm handing out the puppets. And then once the scene is shot, the last scene is done, I take the puppets and put them away. And then I bolt down the stairs of the Metropolitan Museum, call and like hail a cab that takes me downtown to the studio, which was at that time the Ed Sullivan studio. So before
Oh, wow.
Late Show with
Letterman.
Stephen Colbert and Letterman, it was there. And the set was on stage. And so were the cameras. And so during the show that, where the Rolling Stones and the Beatles
Oh, yeah.
and Jim Henson and the Muppets appeared, yeah, it was really weird.
Wow. Yeah.
Well,
None of it makes sense.
Well, none of it makes sense. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I want to ask about Carol Spinney. Could you just talk about him a little bit? What was he like?
Carol was one of like the nicest people I know. He was my mentor. He was my friend. I learned so much from him. He trusted me with Bird for like photo shoots and for parades and for like crowd scenes. I got to be his stand-in double for the movie Follow That Bird, and I loved it. And his wife Debbie is like one of the kindest people I know. They were like so in love with each other, and I will always like remember and thank Carol for everything he taught me, not only puppetry wise, but also performer wise. And that it doesn't take a lot of effort to be kind. There was like one time where we would do a morning show and come back after lunch and do the afternoon show. And a puppeteer who was supposed to be scheduled for the afternoon show didn't know he was scheduled and left. And he was only part of this one bit. And it was a bit with Oscar and Oscar's elephant Fluffy, which is basically an elephant trunk that comes out of the trash can. And so they were like going, like, we're about to read the script and go through it and to the end. And that's when like, well, where's Brian? And I said, oh, he left. And it's like probably, and this was back when like there was no cell phones. It was like there weren't even like pagers yet. And so I was like, he was just gone. And then we had to do the bit right then and there. And so they were wondering, well, who could, and there was nobody else. It was just Carol. It's like, well, who can we get to do the elephant trunk? And Carol said, well, Noel can do it. And I got to do it. My first unofficial like puppetry was doing this like elephant trunk. And I'll always remember that, Carol, because he didn't have to say that, but he did.
That's
and
awesome.
It was wonderful. And Carol was great where he said like there was some times like, he would feel wonderful and it was great to be Bird. And there were some mornings where it's like, got up kind of like, a little grumpy and just like had to get through the day and perfect for those like Oscar moments too.
And you got to work with Frank Oz and Jim Henson a lot too?
Yes, that's where I met Frank and Jim, and as well as like Richard Hunt and Jerry Nelson, Fran Brill, and then also like Marty Robinson. And yeah, meeting Jim and Frank was like one of those, like especially meeting Jim was one of those like electric moments, like shaking his hand and like just like this surge of electricity just went through me while I'm trying to keep it together and just like, oh, it's like very nice to meet you. In my mind, I'm going, oh my God. One time when I transitioned to being a puppeteer, I got to one time right hand for Jim. Right hand means assisting the puppeteer. So like a character like Ernie, the puppeteer, Jim would have his right hand in Ernie's head and his left hand in Ernie's left hand, and I was in Ernie's right hand. And so we're doing the bit, but then they have to stop because they have to adjust the light. And so the wrangler comes over and said, want me to take Ernie? And Jim's like, no, we're good. And he starts walking backwards. And I'm still inside the hand. So I'm walking back with him to these two apple boxes, these two wooden boxes. And we just sit down. And I immediately think like, okay, like you are literally sitting next to Jim Henson. Say something. It's like, say something. And I remember my mom gave me this one piece of advice once. She said, if you ever want to get somebody to talk, ask them about their kids. And so I asked Jim, how are the kids? And that's when he just told me what they were all doing. And then they said they were ready to shoot. And he said, "Thanks for asking." And it's like, my pleasure. And we went back to it.
Oh,
So,
that's sweet.
Oh, that's
yeah,
great.
because I think he appreciated is like not being asked about puppetry.
And thankfully, he didn't look at you and say, "I don't have kids. Who is this?"
It's like,
So, puppeteers, do you guys can treat your hands like classical pianist or whatever? Like you can't, if you get hurt,
mhm.
is that a problem? And has that happened?
I was
Right?
I'm right-handed, as some
Uh-huh.
puppeteers are. So my wife calls this the money hand. So
The
she's
money
like,
hand. Yeah.
right,
Okay.
so be careful, like don't do anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're we're conscious of like, injuries and all that, but we stretch.
Okay. And
We
also,
actually,
I'm remembering what you just said. No one cares that you're in pain down there.
Right.
yeah,
You can
exactly.
make it look
Make it
great
pretty.
up here.
Yeah, make it pretty. That's it.
Okay.
You can
Were
get
you
some physical
there?
therapy to some Tylenol afterwards, but still make it pretty. That's fine.
Yeah, make it pretty. Take some Advil and
Yeah,
suck.
just suck it up and like
Yeah. Yeah.
keep going. Yeah.
So were you there during Elmo and how this explosion? What was that like? Who's going to compensate the rest of us for trying to find them at Christmas time? Uh, anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah, well, what was
Yeah,
this
people
like?
ask me like, have you seen like the documentary on Kevin Clash? And I was like, no, I don't have to. I lived through it. Yeah, and I was there when it happened, where Elmo had been first done by Ryan Meal, who gave Elmo this kind of whispery little voice. And then it got passed to Richard Hunt, who gave him this like very loud, kind of like monster voice, which you can hear at the end of Follow That Bird, because Elmo sticks his head out the window along with others, and you could hear this voice like, no, no, no. It's like this totally wrong, like what we know now. And so Richard like didn't know what to do with it. So he came to the Muppet Lounge, the Muppet Room. And it was me, Kevin Clash, and Dave Rudman was sitting there. And he's holding Elmo and he's like, I don't know what to do with this. Who wants this? And Kevin, who had just started and pretty much inherited Brian Meal's characters because Brian had left, raised his hand. And Richard said, give me a voice. And Kevin did that voice that we all know. And then Richard said, great, and just tossed it across the room, and Kevin caught it. And that's it. And the rest is merchandising history.
Wow, no kidding.
There have been so many celebrity guest stars that come through Sesame Street. So any that really stuck out to you, like who was incredibly nice, or maybe there were a couple that might not have been fun to deal with?
One of the nicest guys that I got to meet early on was John Candy. He came on,
Oh,
and he was his character from SCTV. He was one of the Schmengi brothers.
Oh boy, that's bad, huh? Real good. This guy's got some talent. I tell you that. Oh yes, he does.
He was like so sweet and so nice, and he wanted to do Sesame Street because he's in Follow That Bird as this motorcycle cop at the end who arrests the villains, but there are no Muppets. And he always like was sad that he never got a chance to do anything with the Muppets. So they invited him on the show and he loved it. And so once the bit was done, they called lunch, and me and the other puppeteers like thanked him. It was so nice meeting you. And he said, are you guys going to lunch? And we're like, yeah. It's like, where are you going? I said, oh, this Italian place across the street. He's like, you mind if I tag along? And we're like, no. I was like, sure. And he came, he told us stories about SCTV, and he ended up like treating us all to lunch.
Oh, nice.
And then it was time to get back, and his car was waiting in front of the studio. And he hugs Debbie and he hugs Carol, and then he turns and hugs me too. And I'm thinking, why are you hugging me? it's like, but that was how sweet he was. It was just like he just really appreciated his time there and everybody that made it such a great time. When I was in 1984, I was in LA doing puzzle plays, and just before I walked into the recording studio for a song, that's when I heard on the radio that he died. And I just took a moment in the car and I just sat there, and I was so sad because this was one of the nicest guys. There's even a documentary out now about him, which I really want to see. And basically he's just like one of like the sweetest guys, and it just came through. It was wonderful.
yeah. I love that. I love to hear that. How different was doing a film with these characters as opposed to the television show?
Well, they had to build the street up in Canada. And so they built it, which included also across the street. Like, what is across the street from Sesame Street? So they built this sort of like music store across the street. And one of the things that like threw me off and a couple other people, because back in New York, the set, the sidewalk and the street is painted. But in Canada, they actually built a curb. So as you're walking, you suddenly like realize I'm stepping off a curb because it had to look, real. But there was like one time where there was like a fire hydrant that was not a New York fire hydrant. And Oscar's trash can was like, it's not a New York trash can. So they did their best to try and make it look New York. It was like the way it was shaped, and I was like, it's not really. But it was fine because it was like it came down to like if they're noticing the fire hydrant and not the talking yellow bird and all these friends, then obviously something is wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah. And there was like one, there's this great song by Ernie and Bert, and it's when Jim came and he and Frank did Ernie and Bert for this song that's in a biplane, and the biplane is like Ernie's flying it and he turns it upside down, and it's called Upside Down World. And so you've got, and they did it practical. They did it outside the studio against like a clear blue sky, and they had like a platform attached to the plane, and it's about like 20 feet in the air, so that Jim and Frank could lay down and like put their arms through and have upside down. And like looking back now, it's just like you've got Jim Henson and Frank Oz like 20 feet in the air. It's like, is this really necessary? Couldn't we come down just a little bit, or maybe fake it against green screen or something? I was like, so yeah, it was like it was very funny. But then I remembered like, well, Jim submerged himself in a tank to do Rainbow, the Rainbow Connection for the Muppet movies. So I was like, this is nothing. So
right.
Well, before we move on to Bear, I just want to briefly ask about Eureka's Castle, just because who was involved with it. So there was a little-known author named R.L. Stine involved, right? So, could you tell, what was it like working with it? How did you get involved with that?
Oh, because the shop that built the puppets was a 3 Design Studio, and it was Jim Krupa, again, who I met in college, and his partners John Orberg and Kip Rathke and Matthew Stoddard. And we were doing a movie called Little Monsters in North Carolina that starred Howie Mandel and very young Fred Savage. When they got the call from Nickelodeon saying, we want to do the first original Nickelodeon preschool series from the profits that they got from Double Dare. And so they asked 3 Design to make the puppets. And so they asked me, it's like, Noel, would you want to be a part of it? Because there's a character that's very much like a Big Bird style puppet. It's a dragon. And his name is Magellan. I was like, sure. And so I didn't, after audition, I just like was given the part, which was great.
Wow. Yes.
And it was shot here in New York at National Studios. And the set was raised up. So like the castle courtyard, Batley's, Belfry, the Mo Twins dungeon, it was all raised up so the puppeteers could stand with the puppets on their arms and like have more mobility. But because Magellan has to be taller, I was on these risers, these platforms that were clamped together, and these boards put on the side so that I could feel with my feet and not fall and crush my co-stars. It was great because Eureka's Castle really didn't have a curriculum either. It was just like a nice little variety show with these characters. The second season, I got to be a writer for the show, which was nice. So I wrote some like really fun bits. And it was a great show. And it was like me and Jim Krupa, who played Batley, and also Sir Clank, these mice who lived in a suit of armor. And I got to be Batley's pet spider, Webster. So it was kind of like my version of Big Bird and Oscar. Magellan was very big and sweet, and Webster was this nasty little grouchy like tarantula. There was Lynn Hippen, who was Cooey, who was this little dog-like creature that belonged to Magellan. Uh, Pam Arciero and Brown Meal, they were on the show. Cheryl Blaylock was Eureka. And it was great. It was like, and we shot the first season in New York, and then the second season was broken up. Part one was shot in New York, and then the second half, plus 3 specials, were shot at the brand new Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida.
Yes.
Which was fun too, because
Yeah.
before the end of the day, because the park closed at 6 and we would wrap by 6. So if we wrapped a few minutes early, we would call over and say, like, is Back to the Future still running? Like, have you shut it down? They said no, but we're about to. So we would book across the park
Oh,
to
how
get
cool.
the ride, because it was like the best ride.
Yes. Yes.
Perks. It's all about the perks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, all right, Bear the Big Blue House. I mentioned to you, it was one of my kids' favorite shows. They were so excited that you were coming on. What do you know about how the show came about and how did you get involved? Because from what I understand, you auditioned for a different show entirely?
Yeah, I did. I got a call to come in and audition for the show for kids with this very big character, and it was going to be a game show. And the character was like an alien like character that you climbed into. That was very much like uh Audrey 2, the plant puppet
Oh,
from Little Shop of Horrors. And I'm
Mhm.
sitting in there going like, why didn't you just get Marty Robinson to do this? Because he literally invented this style of puppetry. He created Audrey 2 for the original run of Little Shops. I'm like, why didn't you just get Marty to do this? But I did the bit and moved on. And then it was a Friday, so I came home. And then around 4 o'clock, that's when I got a call like, no, do you have time? Can you come back and audition for a totally different character? And so they faxed me, yes, kids, faxed me the sides and the drawing. And so I only lived 20 minutes away, so I hopped in a cab. And in the cab, I'm looking at the illustration, and it's these little critters, and behind them is this big smiling moon, and in between them stood this very large bear. I was like, okay. So I walk in, and I'm immediately told, use your own voice. And I'm like, what? But we're the Muppets. We don't do that. But for 2 reasons. One, all day long they had heard Muppety voices of like, hi, I'm a bear. Hi, I'm a big old bear. And they didn't want that because 2, this show was designed for kids and their caregivers to watch together. And since the bear was going to be the adult figure, they wanted them to have a fairly normal, even like comforting, soothing voice. So at that time, when I would visit friends, I would do my Uncle Noel mode, which was basically my voice slightly higher, but with the attitude of like, whatever you want to do, I'm game. And so I got inside, and it was the whole outfit without the fur, so I could see through the netting and see the monitor and the camera, and immediately felt this way. It just felt great. Like, wow, I could really have fun with him. And then I realized, no, it's Friday. It's 4:45. They have already picked out who they want. They're just, making sure they made the right decision. And that's when I said, screw it. I'm going to have fun anyway. And I did. I used the entire space. I ran around. And then when it came time in the script for him to realize the smell he was smelling was the viewer, I decided to jam the nose into the camera and pull it out with the response, it's you, and jammed it in again and pulled it out and finished the bit. They thanked me, I thanked them, and I walked out and completely forgot about it. And then the following Monday, just before 6 o'clock, that's when the Jim Henson Company called and offered me a part of Bear.
Oh,
That's creative. That's thinking outside of the box, and it's interactive. That's brilliant. The whole it's you.
Also with the audition of like, you know what? Don't care anymore. Just have fun. It's like, because it's so out of your hands. I've told people that too. If you have an audition, just go for it, because it's ultimately not your decision. So you might as well just have fun while you can.
Take chances and don't pretend you know that you don't have it. Just do it.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get that call.
Do it. There you go.
Yeah.
And then if you get it, it's a great surprise. Basically, like I said, it was like this Uncle Noel mode. So it was just like, he's just this, he's this adult that happens to be covered in fur, but willing to like hang out and have fun with this kid. And what I applied was what I always told people who I was training for Sesame Street Across the Seas was that camera is not a camera. That is a kid who has never seen the show before. And
Oh,
your
interesting.
job from the moment they see this character is to keep them engaged and interested. And if you're lucky, they will come back again to watch.
Oh, hi! It's you! I'm so glad to see you, and you're just in time. Come on in. Hmm? It's you! I was just on my way into the living room to sit down on my couch and read a good book. Now let's see, which one today?
Yet ever so humble, there's no
What's all
place
this?
like home.
Another advice my mom gave me is that, smile, because, they can't see my face, but you can hear a smile. And so whenever I opened the door as Bear, I would remember that's the kid who has never been here before. And so each time I opened the door was like opening night. And it's just like somebody new and just like smile. And that's what Bear was. He was just like, always smiling. Like he was the ideal caregiver that we all strive to be. Like he never lost his temper. He never was impatient. He always had time for his friends. Even if he was doing something, he would stop and go see what his friend needed or wanted. In fact, the whole show was actually a formula called Bears Interruptus. That's what the head writer, Annie Yerkes, told me, was that like Bear tells you what he's planning and then immediately gets interrupted.
Yeah.
And then he has attempt number 2, immediately gets interrupted. Then it's time for Shadow. Then he'll try one more time, and that's usually when he actually is able to do it, sometimes with the help of his friends. And then time to head upstairs and talk to the moon.
Right.
You move around so much on the show, and you said even in your audition you did that. So how
And
difficult?
it's everything Carol taught me too. That's it.
But it's such a big costume. So it was how difficult was that with mobility? I was just curious on that.
Well, first, like technically he's what's called a walk around puppet. So that because you're still applying the principles of puppetry to him in his head and his lip sync and eye focus, he's a puppet that you just happen to be wearing. Like Mickey Mouse is a costume. Bear is not a costume. He's a walk around puppet. And he was just like, when I got the part, there was like the first time I got the call from the Henson workshop saying, "No, do you have any time later this week or next week to come in for a fitting?" And I said, "I can be there in 20 minutes." And I would just, every time they would call, I would just go because I realized he and I are going to have this very intimate relationship and let's make this as comfortable as possible. And that's why it worked like so well. And I knew exactly how he could move. And again, like when a director would ask me, "Noel, can Bear do this?" And I would say, "No, but he can do this," which is something they had never thought of. I was like, "Oh, that's even better. Yes, this is what we can do."
Is all the dialogue that we're hearing as your audience at home spoken in the puppet costume?
Yep.
You don't ADR that later?
Nope.
Wow.
Like it was like, yeah, it was like
It's
whenever
like a little sound studio.
Bear would tell you what he's doing, it's like, whatever the theme was, and like the little word would appear. And it's like blah blah blah. And then usually right after that, that's when you would go into the song and Bear would sing and of course dance. And then at the end, that's when Bear introduces the little segment that was recorded with real kids. And Bear would say, "But what do you think? What do you think? But blah, 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 blah. What do you think?" And I would have to really make sure I wasn't out of breath. And then when they said cut, that's when I was like,
Well, but that's because on the technical level, I would assume it would sound muffled or
Oh
something.
no, because the microphone was inside. I have the monitor, my tiny little TV set, the way Carol did, and what I did for Magellan, it's strapped to my chest. So what you saw at home is what I saw, which is everything is backwards. And so if I felt turning Bear's head to the left on the monitor, he's actually looking towards my right. But that's the way my brain was wired, having learned it from Jim and Frank and the others. And then the microphone is right on top of that. So as I'm looking down, my voice is going directly into the microphone as I'm like looking at the TV screen. So it wasn't muffled. And they would do like, mic tests, and they would do like even like room tone, like for the other characters. That's when for audio, they can always like put it in later on. So like room tone for the set. So everybody has to be quiet so you can do a room tone. And then for me too, they would like, no, we need a room tone. So I would just like sit down in Bear, and then everybody else is quiet. And like for like, 30 seconds, they would just like roll tape so that you would hear just whatever it was like inside. And so that's why they could like balance it. And that's why it sounds so clean.
You guys have had so many great songwriters involved with the show, and so many great songs, really catchy, including the theme, which is incredibly catchy. Any favorites?
There's like there's the song that I got to write, and I did the lyrics, and Peter Lurie, who was our music director, he did the music, and it's called Come On In. And it's pretty much like the entire like show in a song, with Bear inviting you in and like everything that you get to do with him. Another song was The Rhythm of Life, which is very like it's kind of French cabaret kind of song. And then of course, there's like the Goodbye Song, which is like the sweetest, saddest kid song ever written. That people to this day weep. And people have been online doing their versions of it, and it's just wonderful. And at the time we were doing the show, we didn't think of this as a legacy. We just thought of it as like a fun show. And by the fourth season, that's when we would have more kids visiting the set, so that it got to the point where like every 2 weeks, like on a Wednesday, we would start recording. And then around 10 o'clock, that's when, we would stop. And then the kids that got to come to the show would walk through the set, and we, starting like with the far end of the set, with the Audubon, and see Pep and Pop and the Trilo. You go into the kitchen, you see Ojo, and you see Tutter. And then finally we walk into the living room, there's Bear on the swing, and you get like a nice little photo with Bear, and like walk out. Our director and AD, Dean Gordon, would roll so that people could get VHS copies of it to take home with them. He called them the bar mitzvah tapes. And like, everybody got their own like little tape that they could take home. And what was great with the set was that the set was raised up. It was all on these platforms that were about, 5 feet tall. The entire house. The first floor was on one side with the otter pond and the attic, and the other side was Bear's bathroom and bedroom. And then they could pop pieces of the floor out so that the puppeteers could stand and put the puppets up next to Bear. And then again, they would drill these boards on the edges so I could feel it with my feet, so I wouldn't topple over and crush my co-stars.
Luna, played by Lynn Thigpen, and who's a Tony Award winner. Yeah. Jeffrey Holder, a Tony Award winner, and a Bond villain. So could you talk about them a little bit?
Oh yeah, it was.
Did you work with them, or did you do their voice work separately?
No, I got to record like all the dialogue with Luna. Lynn and I would go to a recording studio, and we would sit opposite each other and just read the dialogue. And then when she got this part on this network show, she was in LA. So then they coordinated like a studio out there and me, so that we could still do the dialogue together to get the intimacy and even the spontaneity between the two characters. Lynn was great. She would tell me these great stories because she was such a great character actress too. She's the voice of the narrator. She's the DJ in the classic movie The Warriors. You never see her face, but you hear her voice.
Yes.
She's been on like shows like All My Children. She got to be an extra on Sesame Street once when Slimy was going to the moon. She was the scientist. She's done all this like body of work, and she was just a wonderful human being. She was great, and when I recommended her for Luna because I would go in and like read with other actresses, And I remember, and I recommended her for Luna. And as soon as she came in, we started reading. That's when Mitchell Kriegman, the creator of the show, he said, yes, it's like, that's, that's Luna. Actually, Mitchell asked me, like, what would be a good name for the moon? And I said, Luna. And then when it came time for the sun, he said, what would be a good name for the sun? And it took me a second, and I said, Ray. But before Lynn and I talked as Bear and Luna, she and I did an episode of The Puzzle Place where my character Leon was being Sherlock Holmes. He was being a detective, and he was having trouble. And so he goes to the machine that they had at the Puzzle Place. Before Zoom, it was called the Weebus, where they would just say, Weebus, call blah, 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 blah. And this person would appear on the screen and they would have this conversation. So this was a script that I wrote, and I was hoping it would happen, and sure enough, it did. So it's like one of those rare PBS crossovers where Leon says, Weebus, call the chief of the Acme Detective Agency. And Lynn appeared as her character from Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Oh, wow.
And so I did my side first in that summer, and then 84, 85. And then in the fall, when they went back into production for Carmen Sandiego, Lynn did her half, and they edited it together so that it looks like the two of them are talking. And I reminded her of that, and she totally remembered doing that. So it was really sweet how our characters got to talk yet again.
Is there any talk about bringing Bear in the future and any variation of him?
Right now, no.
Okay.
No. And all I can say is there's a reason why it's called show business. And
Yes.
There's something about that Bear was so much more realistic, and your mannerisms was so spot on. I could see how a child would just forget they're even watching TV.
It was like I got the same kind of compliment. It's really weird. Everything you were saying, I got it from Ben Vereen. He had seen
gosh.
That's all
and
you
when
need.
I met him, he pretty much said the exact same thing, and I was so flattered. Like, this man was like Ben Vereen.
He knows, expression with his from head to toe, and that's a huge compliment.
Yeah, it was. It was great. So I felt very, very flattered. I met him when Bear did a couple appearances for the Walt Disney World Christmas Parade, which, by the way, is taped the first week of November. It's not on Christmas Day. What you're seeing is it's over a month before that. And I flew in, and then we got taken, my wife and I, my mom, got taken to the candlelight processional at Epcot, and he was the narrator. And got to meet him afterwards because they told me, it's like, like, Ben would love to meet you. I was like, what? I was like, you're kidding.
You're like, no, I don't have time for that.
It's like that.
No, are you kidding?
No,
that's amazing.
Well, as we're bringing this to a close, I want to ask you a couple of quick questions. One, I was curious about your cabaret show. You did a cabaret show.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about your career. Is it tough to perform without, like, the shield of the puppet in front of you or something? Because you've been used to doing that for so long.
Yeah, it's basically, I deliberately wanted to get out of my comfort zone and just stand up there and do it, because I've seen other people do it. I've had friends do it. I've been part of, like, other friends doing it, and then I thought, well, maybe I could do this myself, like actually be up there. And what I learned, it was because it pretty much, like, I talked to Michael Kirk-Lane, who's a cabaret director, music director for cabarets. He does his own cabaret show. He has a course that's taught at the 92nd Street Y, and it's amazing. And you should go and, like, look it up and apply, because his guest art instructors include Faith Prince, like Broadway legend.
Yeah.
And so I started talking with him about it, and I learned that, a cabaret is not karaoke. You're not sitting there watching somebody just sing their favorite song. There has to be a reason.
Yeah.
There has to be a journey. It has to be a story. Like, why are we here? Why do these songs mean so much to you, and make them have meaning for me? And so going, and so pretty much took like over a year to like put this all together. I remember there was like one time I was getting close to the show and we were going through this song, and the music director, John Bronston, at the end of it, he just said, "This isn't working." And I'm like, now this isn't working. And it's like, no, and it's like, and he was right. It's like something was off. And so, but then we figured out how to fix it, and it was great. And there was like songs that, I suggested, and songs that got used and songs that didn't get used. There was even one part where I decided, like later on, it's like, you know what, this whole little section's like, I don't need it. And we just like tossed it out. And so pretty much, yeah, it's based on my life and the stories,
Yeah.
like Sesame Street and my family, my mom, and I got to, like, my son got to perform in it with
Oh,
me.
that's great.
Yeah, and
Wow.
my friend Jen Barnhart, who's a phenomenal puppeteer. She was one of the original cast members of Avenue Q, and she and I worked on Between the Lions and on Sesame Street. And Fergie Philippe, who's this Broadway star from Hamilton, from the revival of Camelot. He's on tour currently as the Beast in Beauty and the Beast. And Weston Chandler Long, who's my buddy and colleague from Little Shop of Horrors. And we sang Feed Me. He got, because he also understudied, he not only is the puppeteer for the show, but he understudies Oren and Seymour. So he got to sing Seymour, and I got to sing the Audrey 2 part, because I'm also not only a swing puppeteer for the off-Broadway revival, but I'm also a swing voice. So if they need like a voice, then I'm available.
Yeah. You have a fascinating life.
Yes.
Seriously.
Well,
Yeah, that's what made me realize, like, going
to
through the cabaret is like, wow, I've done a lot, haven't I? Geez.
Yeah. And I'm glad you explained that, because most people, I'm guessing that, 90% of the people you would ask on the street, what's the difference between cabaret and somebody, you go and just to stand up and sing songs. There is a large difference, and you explained it. And that's
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah, there's a whole
Yeah.
world. It's so many talented people out there, and it's amazing. So if, like, if you're listening, you have, check out in your town, like if there's a cabaret nearby, and go support the local talent, and it's great.
I want to give you another plug. I've been reading your memoir. Hey, this was really fun. So I've been really enjoying the stories, and I definitely recommend it for whoever is watching, listening. Love, great job with that one.
Thank you.
We'll put it up. Well, listen, I mean, Noel, you're obviously accomplished, you're talented, and most importantly, what I loved taking out of this conversation is you're a happy person. You can't argue with me. You look like a joyful human, and and you've been in the entertainment industry for many years. To come out of it
can
happy,
suck the joy out of you sometimes.
I know. I'm saying, to come out of it happy, you win. You're the winner here.
Yeah. Well, that's why, like one thing about the pandemic and the lockdown, I learned is, like, it doesn't take a lot to just put positivity out there. And so that's why, for a friend's wedding, my friend James Voital made this puppet of Bear. So it's a puppet of a puppet, which is very meta, as if you put Bear in the dryer, so he shrunk down. And my son at the time said, Dad, you should go on TikTok. And I was like, what's a TikTok? And he explained it to me. He said, and you should use Bear. And it's like, why? I said, millennials love Bear. And so, during the lockdown, I started doing videos, and they just took off, which was amazing, because of the fact that, again, you don't realize, like, you're creating a legacy until, later on.
Wait,
and
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, and it was just like, when Bear, I did this one video because people got cheated out of their, graduations for 2020. So Bear did this video congratulating the class of 2020. And just like, I got all these responses of like, thank you so much. Like, you started my childhood, now you're starting my adulthood. Like, it's like all this resonating stuff. And even doing a video of, like, washing your hands and about 20 seconds.
Right.
And I did it to the goodbye song, and it went viral, and it got picked up by the BBC. So me and Bear got interviewed by the BBC.
That's awesome.
How can people follow you on social media?
I'm on Instagram at NMacNeal. I'm on the TikTok. Noel MacNeal. I'm on Cameo, so you can like
Yes.
request Bear or occasionally Keiko from a show I did called Ubi. But that's another podcast. Yeah, so I'm there, and I'm heading back to be a swing at Little Shop of Horrors. I'm actually got con appearances coming up this year, like the weekend of January 17th and 18th. I'm going to be in Lakeland, Florida for Central Florida Comic Con. And there'll be a few more coming up, and I post them on Instagram and TikTok so that in case
I'm in South Florida. We should get here then instead.
That's what people would say. Like it's like come to Philadelphia, come to South Florida, come to Ireland. It's like I love to come to Ireland. It's like work your magic. Come on.
You gonna fly me there?
Yeah, exactly. Help a boy out. It's like come on. It's like I got a bear. It's like we got passports. Come on.
Right.
So I want to thank you so much for coming on.
This was great, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
No, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let me sign us off.
Have a happy, healthy, safe 2026.
Yes, you too. Let me sign us off. 1 second. I'll say, okay. Again, this has been Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Moosie Drier. And again, a very special thanks to Noel MacNeal. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast. Listening to this podcast just makes you really cool.